Hey guys, it's Paradise, and Sid Meier's Civilization VII is just around the corner, releasing on February the 11th. The Civ series has been a long staple of strategy gaming, giving us a chance to lead those different historical civilizations from ancient times through to modern eras. And now with the release of Civilization VII, the game introduces several fundamental changes that shakes up the traditional gameplay formula. From a redesigned leader and civilization system to the introduction of a new influence mechanic, these changes give Civ VII a more fresh and dynamic experience for both veterans and newcomers. Well, as a big strategy game fan, I was quite excited to give this game a go, thank you to 2K for providing us with a code. Even without a ton of knowledge on the rest of the Civ series, there were some standout features and mechanics that I felt played a fairly big role in mixing up the gameplay. It's been a blast playing and expanding, but I figured the best thing to go over is these new and interesting things that are mixing up the game. And don't worry, I won't be spoiling anything for you. I'll use my early game gameplay and trailers, so you don't have to worry about seeing something that you were saving yourself for. One of the most striking changes in Civ VII is the decoupling of leaders from their civilizations. Previously, each leader was sort of intrinsically tied to a specific civilization, meaning their abilities and playstyles were more so fixed. But in this iteration of Civ, you can mix and match leaders with any civilization, leading to a lot more customization and depth. This new system allows for a bunch of unique and creative strategies, where historical figures like Benjamin Franklin could even lead the Mayan Empire. It's a bit wacky and some options make no sense, but from a gameplay perspective it's pretty cool, although I'm sure many history buffs out there will have a bone to pick with this change. At the end of the day though, it does add a lot more replayability and a ton of new strategies, so if you do play Civ a lot, my experience is this is looking like a good thing. This isn't the only major change to pure gameplay though. Civ VII also has a new approach to progression by dividing the game into 3 distinct ages. The Antiquity Age, which represents when agricultural societies began to cluster into urban centers, forming the foundations of the first civilizations. Then there's the Exploration Age, when the desire for precious commodities from distant lands spurred empires to stretch across the great oceans. And then there's the Modern Age, a period of incredible technological growth and global conflict where mankind goes from the development of the steam engine to the splitting of the atom. To be fair, the Modern Age is a sort of mix of industrial and modern day tech. So unlike previous games where you would evolve continuously, you now transition to a new civilization at the start of an age. This means you need to adjust your strategies when transitioning into these different eras, especially the modern era. But from what I can tell, this does add another level of balance to the game, preventing strong early game civilizations that are snowballing from dominating in the endgame. It actually does also encourage you to learn and master more than just one civilization choice, as you will be changing throughout. But another cool thing is the dynamic terrain changes. Civ VII adds terrain evolution, which is basically a feature that makes the map ever-changing. This means that landscapes can shift and it can alter resources, trade routes, and even your city planning. And there's new additions with things like navigable rivers and elevated terrains, which gives you new ways to travel. And there's even narrative events on top that can lead to environmental changes, with things like floods affecting your farmland and even damaging your cities. So if you've played something like the Gathering Storm DLC in Civ VI, you kind of know what to expect with these kind of environmental mechanics. But furthermore, let's talk about the overhaul unit management system with the addition of commanders. Now the old way of unit stacking is gone, and instead you have commanders, which are a special military unit that you can use to lead groups of soldiers together and coordinate attacks. One of the cool things that I like about commanders is how they can gain experience, level up, and through your choices in the skill tree, provide different passive bonuses to your armies around them. It takes some getting used to, but honestly makes for a more fun and strategic battle system. Also, the change in micromanagement is kind of appreciated in my opinion. But now we have something that will provide a bit of a learning curve, which is the new influence system. This is a new resource that you accumulate over time to build up and spend on diplomatic actions. So things like forming alliances, befriending or condemning other factions will now cost this resource, making it vital for figuring out the best way to engage with other factions on the map. Overall, I found it provides a more nuanced way to engage with opponents beyond just simple war and peace options. So it adds more depth to things and you have this resource to juggle. Now I wonder how people will receive this change because barbarians have been a staple in previous Civ games. But it's important to know these are gone now and they've been replaced by independent factions. These are factions that behave a bit more dynamically and in my experience can go on to evolve over time. Basically, this makes those early game interactions with non-player factions a little more complex and from my playing a lot more unpredictable. I did touch on this before, but let's talk about narrative events. These are kind of like story-driven moments where you need to make a choice, some being impactful while others didn't seem to make too much of a difference depending on what resource you want to gain. My understanding of this is that they can influence the direction that your civilization develops, but I didn't really get to see how this one played out properly, so more testing is needed. But there were some more interesting or impactful ones like I said before, with my city getting flooded. But altogether, this did give me a breath of fresh air into the series. Even if you dislike some of these new changes, it is a bold step forward for the franchise, and I think will still feel like home for those deep in the meta of the series, even though there is a few new things to master now. It definitely introduces changes that will pose an extra challenge to veterans and new players, and I particularly did get on with the new commander system and the influence-based diplomacy. Basically, it's been a blast playing this, and it is still at its core civilization. So in my experience, a full playthrough was around 20 hours, and that will depend on your playstyle, but again, there is a lot of replayability to be had. I do wish I could have experimented with the multiplayer a little more, but that's not always a luxury you get when you get an early game. I hope that this was a helpful recap of my impressions on these new systems and mechanics that I got to experience, even though I'm not the best Civilization player. So thank you very much for watching. Here at Arekkz Gaming, we're two friends who love to play games. You have me, Paradise, as well as 26.
Our goal is to keep the videos as concise as possible by cutting out any of the fluff and focusing on what really matters with high quality videos.
So make sure you're subscribed down below for more videos on your favorite games coming very, very soon.